Story 1. My husband and I were at one of my coworkers' homes in the 90s, and they had a long ashtray. I pulled it toward me to ash my cigarette, and the top shifted, revealing a massive bag of cocaine underneath. We just looked at each other. Then I put the top back, and we didn't talk about it again until we got home. The coworker was in the bathroom when that happened, so they never knew we saw it. Story 2. When I was 12 or so, in the early 90s, I spent the night at my friend's house. He got in trouble for not mowing the grass, so he and his dad went out and mowed the grass for about 2 hours. Idle hands and such. I went snooping around because I was bored of playing with Nintendo and G.I. Joe. I went into his dad's room. He was divorced, and it was just he and my friend in the house. As I ventured through the room, I found this wood panel behind his TV chest of drawers. I tried lifting it to move it, and it fell off the wall. Behind it was an absolute treasure trove of Playboy magazines, hundreds of them stacked in little organizing holders by year. It was like finding an unlimited supply of, well, material. It was glorious. I put the board back, never said anything to anyone, and took one random magazine for myself. I still remember it. It had a woman crouching, wearing neon panties, a ball cap, and rollerblades on the cover. A few weeks later, I spent the night again, and I wanted to check out the collection again. This time, my friend caught me snooping and said, "So you found my dad's magazines, huh? I won't say anything if you won't." We had a laugh, and I visited that stash 100 times during those years we were friends. Story 3. I remember when I was about 9, a friend of mine wanted to show me something he found in his mom's room. We sneaked upstairs, and he revealed a huge black dildo. At the time, we didn't have a clue what it was, just that we definitely shouldn't have found it. He denies it to this day, but I know what we saw. Story 4. Visited a friend once for a sleepover. I went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and found a dildo stuck dangling in the wall inside the shower stall. Story 5. When I was around 5 years old, during a family dinner, I found my mom's toy. I went to the table where all my family was having dinner and asked, "What is this?" Story 6. Family Christmas last year. My husband's brother and his girlfriend hosted. They had a to-do list on the fridge. Number 1 and number 2 were normal things. Number 3 was "Come in, Jessica." I told him I liked his list, and he quickly went over and erased it. It was on a whiteboard, so it was very quickly removed. Story 7. I house and dog sat for a buddy. They asked me to grab some paperwork off his nightstand and drop it off at our workplace. I went to his room and saw 2 nightstands. I didn't see any paperwork, so I opened the drawer. I swear I wasn't snooping. To my surprise, there were about 5 or 6 different sized items like butt plugs, lube, and vibrators. I'm assuming they belonged to his wife. I promptly closed the drawer and just texted him that I didn't see anything. Apparently, there's an extra nightstand in the spare room or office. He probably should have mentioned the location first, I guess. Story 8. I was house sitting and pet sitting for a couple. I was allowed to use their personal computer. I wouldn't normally look through photos in the photo files, but there was a random JPEG file on their desktop, so I clicked it. The thumbnail was not the image. It was an inappropriate picture. Story 9. Early in my relationship with my now husband, we were staying at his parents' place. I was looking for towels under the bathroom sink and found a red plastic container with the word Viagra across the top. I abandoned my search and didn't mention it to my husband. Months later, I was back at their place, and my father-in-law was complaining about waterlogged ears after a swim. He went into the bathroom and came out with the Viagra container. I just looked at it. He opened it up and it had earbuds in it. I still didn't say a word. My sister-in-law saw my face, burst out laughing and said, "It's just for earbuds. Mom got it from work." Their mom is a nurse, and being a baby boomer, she tends to collect, keep, and hoard stuff that other people would otherwise throw out or donate. Story 10. Friend's dad kept a revolver in his sock drawer. We used to play with it when nobody was home. It was never loaded. One day, as usual, we played with the gun. We'd always dry fire and goof around. I put the gun against a kid's head. Usually, I'd pull the trigger. I didn't for some reason. As I was putting it down, someone noticed that it was loaded. Parents, I know you do all you can to keep your kids safe, but you should also teach them what to do if they are around a gun. I know you'd never let it happen, but it happens. Teach the 4 basic rules. I made my kids memorize them before they could have a Nerf gun. Story 11. My dad was painting my mom's grandfather's house and found a secret space with a very nice 25-gallon copper still. This was back in the early 1950s, and grandfather had worked for Al Capone in Chicago managing a speakeasy during Prohibition. He must have had a side business when they moved back to Muskegon, Michigan. Story 12. Found my friend's mom's sex toys and nude Polaroids. She had sex outfits and handcuffs, etc., and this huge black dildo. Being teenagers, of course, we slapped one of the lads in the face with it. He screamed, "You!" It touched my lip. Story 13. I remember spending the night at a friend's house way back in high school, and she hadn't cleaned her room before I came over. She had a pair of underwear on the floor next to the laundry basket with poop stains in them. I nonchalantly covered them up and never said a word. Story 14. I was helping a couple of friends move out of a place. They had moved in with a woman and her daughter, and they were supposed to be splitting rent and bills equally. The woman wasn't paying her share of the power, and it got shut off. She apparently expected my friends to live in their bedroom and never come out or use any other part of the house. She complained about everything they did, from what they cooked to using hot water when they took a shower, and even started an argument because she heard them having sex once. She called them perverts and claimed that they were disturbing her 14-year-old daughter and would corrupt her if they stayed there any longer. When she walked off, her daughter just shrugged her shoulders and told my friends that she didn't have any problem with them. She knew about sex and could have it any time she wanted. So, I came over to lend a hand and a vehicle to help them move as quickly as possible. After about the 3rd or 4th trip, I needed to use the toilet. When I went to wash my hands, I stopped dead. There was a dildo that was at least a foot long and several inches thick, just laying in the sink and leaving no room for anything else. I asked my friends if it was theirs, and they said no, it was the woman's. She refused to keep it anywhere else and had a screaming fit if anyone moved it, even temporarily, for any reason. As far as they knew, she never cleaned it, used it frequently in the living room while everyone was home, and was way louder about it than they had been having sex. Talk about double standards, right? Story 15. A suitcase with what I now realize were drugs in it. I was a kid and my friend and I found it. I thought the people were doctors because there were syringes in the bag. I found my parents' wheat seeds as a kid as well. I thought it was apple seeds for a while. I kind of suspected it wasn't, though. Also, my friend and I ate the special cookies we found once. I remember getting really sick but having no idea why. Story 16. Once, I stayed with my brother and his wife. One day, my niece and I, who were the same age, snooped around their room and found a whole sex kit. We stopped snooping afterward. She ended up joking to her parents about the kit, saying I found it, and so I got in trouble while she just went on with her life like, haha, dumb me. Now she's a substance abuser somewhere in Seattle. Story 17. Around the ages of 16 or 17, my friend and I were looking for marijuana in his mom's room, and he found a note to the man who had raped her years ago. It was a strange letter, to say the least. Story 18. My sister found our grandma's massager and a home video of our brother and some girl within about 10 days of each other. She doesn't snoop anymore. Story 19. The book, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask, was on the bookshelf when I was babysitting as a teenager. It was quite the eye-opener. Story 20. I played in a band a few years back, and we were invited to play a house show, specifically a barbecue, because the guy's house was on a big farm property in western New Jersey. A bunch of the bands started playing kickball, and my friend came running up to me out of nowhere looking startled. He said he was snooping around the yard and noticed a random trailer out in the open, so we went inside. It was just filled with stacks and stacks of adult magazines and videos with one table and chair in the middle of the room. There was just an old box television and video cassette recorder on the table and nothing else noticeable in there that I could remember. Story 21. I was studying at a friend's house and we were, for some reason, messing with a drawer in his room, going through stuff that was in it. There was a flip phone from the early to mid-2000s that he said was his mom's. but the screen was messed up, and it didn't show the images or texts unless you pressed the sides of the screen in a particular way. He left the room to grab some snacks in the kitchen while I was with this phone in his bedroom. I kept pressing the sides, just trying to see if I was able to make it work. The phone lit up, and I was presented with a very graphic text that was clearly sent by his mom to his stepdad. I couldn't look at my friend's very stern mother for the rest of my high school days. Story 22. Let's just say my single aunt had the biggest adult toy I have ever seen in my life. She had me go to her closet to grab a sweater, and I found it behind all the clothes on the floor. It was horse size at least. I was about 15 and knew about adult toys and even had a small vibrating toy I got from a store. But I had never seen one that big before. I almost asked her about it but realized that was probably not appropriate since I went in just for the sweater. Story 23. Visiting my mother's house after college. I cannot remember what I was looking for but found my pink glass dildo in her drawer. I forgot about it after leaving for college, and apparently, she kept it for herself. Needless to say, I was officially grossed out. Never said a word. Story 24. Weed, cocaine, pills, and pornography. We would feed weed to the fish we found. Then we found evidence of a kidnapping and potential murder of a missing woman. My friend's dad took his sister and left town about 2 days later after we told his mom. I was at his house that night. Not long after, his mom started having people around, and we later learned she was prostituting to save money to get his sister back and find his dad. Story 25. As a bored teenager before cell phones were common, one Christmas afternoon I was poring over my elderly step-grandparents' bookshelf looking for anything to entertain myself. Placed perpendicularly along the back of one shelf behind the autobiographies and historical novels, I found a copy of a tantric sex book. Needless to say, I was entertained. Story 26. My friend and I were snooping through his dad's room, hoping to find pornography or something cool. Under his bed, we found what can only be described as the love burrito. Basically, it was a homemade device that was clearly well loved. A harsh lesson was learned that day. Don't snoop through people's stuff, lest you uncover a love burrito. Story 27. I found a story my mom wrote in her early 30s in college after she had split from my dad when we kids were tweens. The story talked about suicide. She's okay. That was 30 years ago. Still weird to think about. Story 28. We spent the night at my buddy's uncle's place one night, and he was away at work. We went to look through his movie collection, and there was a lot of pornography and a very weird collection of it. The one that I remember was titled, Daddy, There's a Black Man in the House. He was an older white guy. It was very weird the next day when we were all eating breakfast together with him and his wife. Story 29. A long time ago, when we were around 8 years old, I was at my best friend's house. We were looking for something and decided to search in her parents' bedroom. She told me I had to close my eyes when I walked into the room and was only allowed to look in a specific direction. It annoyed me because I wondered what could be so bad. Anyhow, we left the room and continued our day. After some weeks, I was at their house again, went to the toilet next to the parents' bedroom and decided to take a look. There were 5 different big photos of her parents from a naked photo shoot. As a kid, it mainly made me giggle. It was strange seeing her parents naked and in all sorts of different positions. I never told my friend, though. Nothing worse than this as a young kid. Story 30. Not a friend or relative, but when I was in high school, I was asked to babysit a child who was in the class where I was a camp counselor. I went into the bathroom and saw a framed drawing hanging across from the toilet. It was a nude woman, similar to the drawing of Rose in Titanic. The woman looked very familiar. It was the child's mother. I couldn't look at her the same when she and her husband returned. I declined when they asked me to babysit again. Story 31. I have a vivid discovery memory as well. I was maybe 7 or 8 and at my friend's house. Her mother had run to the store or something quick and left us with my friend's younger brother, who was maybe 5. The mom wasn't gone 2 minutes and the brother comes running into the living room with their mom's vibrator. We told him to just put it back and he did. The following day, on our walk to school, the brother tells me their mom had told them that the thing was a foot massager. Sure, Mrs. Geary. Story 32. When my uncle was in college and I stayed with my grandma, I would always sleep in his room. I found a gay male porn magazine stuffed on a shelf. I never told anyone about it. He married his high school girlfriend and has 2 adult children now. Story 33. A book titled Sex After 60, or something similar, was on my grandma's coffee table when I was 10. The entire family was over visiting, and she didn't put it away. Story 34. After my uncle passed away, I was clearing his house, and in the basement, I found boxes and boxes of pornography going back to the 1970s. I needed gloves for that cleanup. Story 35. My dad was friends with the mayor of a little town we used to live in, and we would go over to his house once in a while to hang out. One day, I went upstairs to use the bathroom because the downstairs bathroom was occupied, got turned around, and ended up in the mayor's bedroom. Nosy little kid me went peeking and found a stash of cocaine and toys, not adult toys, kid toys. I was just old enough to know what that implied. Never went back. Discouraged Dad from ever going back, but did not tell him why.